Let's try to break this all down. Joining me now is constitutional lawyer Bruce Fein. So, Bruce, how significant is this new development?
Well, it's significant in the sense that under our Constitution, you can't charge someone with a serious federal crime unless there's a grand jury indictment. Now, the grand jury not only has to vote to indict, but the prosecutor has to sign it in order for it to be valid. And a grand jury, if people watching don't know about it, it's citizens just like you or me. It's typically sometimes 23 that are drawn at random, and they listen to the evidence that's presented by the prosecutor. They really don't operate independently. The prosecutor brings in witnesses, they listen, they're permitted to ask questions of the witnesses if they wish to. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But what's, I think, very important to remember is that a witness does not have their attorney with them when they're inside the prosecutor's office, and inside the grand jury room, rather. And that means if you have a witness that can't think on their feet, and some of them, I think we already know who they might be, Donald Trump Jr., you are going to be in serious trouble inside that grand jury room, because you're going to have to be talking on your own.
So what does this signify? What does this say about where this investigation is heading?
It means that it's really stepping up, or escalating, if you will, the seriousness, because the grand jury, unlike just the prosecutor, has the power to subpoena witnesses, compel them to testify under oath, subpoena documents. It's all held in secrecy, and you wouldn't elevate an investigation into a grand jury unless you thought you had something serious further to probe here.
Much has been made about Trump, his campaign, his family, and possible financial ties to Russia. Now, a lot of that existed before he even became president, but what is Mueller trying to do? How's he trying to untangle this web here?
Well, that's an excellent question. We don't know exactly what he's investigating because the grand jury operates in secret. But certainly his initial charge under the order that was issued by the Justice Department was to investigate what's thought to be the collusion, if you will, the government of Russia trying to help the Trump campaign defeat Hillary Clinton by providing information, because it's a crime in U.S. law for a foreign government to offer anything of value to a candidate to win an election. But the finances don't seem to have anything to do with that. My suspicion is the finances relate to perhaps money laundering, that Russian oligarchs would buy into Trump real estate. They needed to park their money someplace, on maybe there wasn't much due diligence to try to make certain that the money wasn't tainted. But how does that relate to, but that doesn't seem to relate to collusion. And may be a situation where a defendant could say, you've gone beyond your charter. On the other hand, it might also be a basis to infer that he already had close ties with the Russians. He was doing them favors, and this was a motivation, if you will, for the Russians to give him back. Since he had accommodated them in laundering money, all right, well, they would accommodate him in his presidential race. But we won't know for certain until we know exactly what a possible charge could be.
Because we don't even know, or no one has said, if the president himself is under investigation.
That is correct. We have Mr. Comey making that statement, but that was before Mr. Comey. That was before Mr. Comey had been fired, and Mr. Comey doesn't know what Mr. Mueller is doing. And certainly, when the president said recently that if Mr. Mueller got into so-called finances, that was the red line. That indicates, I think, in Trump's mind, that is a new area that hadn't been probed before. Now, one thing I want to clarify from what went previously. Even if the Congress hired Mr. Mueller, to continue their investigation, Congress cannot criminally prosecute anybody. It is true that in the Watergate case, when you had grand jury material, ordinarily it's kept secret, but there are special rules that enable the grand jury material to release to the public, and that grand jury information was all given to the House Judiciary Committee in their impeachment inquiry. So everything that the grand jury has accommodated, even if it hasn't actually indicted anybody, if you look at the Watergate precedent, it can go up to the Congress, and you don't need a crime to impeach a president like you do if you're going to prosecute criminally.
All right, we'll have to see how this all unfolds. Bruce Fein, thank you as always.
Thank you.